Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first Ask Me Anything webinar special with Dr. Stephen Dam. Today, you get a chance to ask him any questions you would like. This time is yours, so feel free to ask all your questions. To send us your questions, use the panel on the right labeled Questions. If we can't get to everyone's questions today, please email us after the webinar at usersuccess@specinnovations.com or support@innoslate.com. You can also give us a call at 571-485-7800 and talk to a real human. Alternatively, you can reach out to us on social media. We welcome having our LinkedIn user group. You can reach us there or through Twitter. We'll answer you. I'd like to introduce you to our host, Dr. Stephen Dam. He is the president and founder of SPEC Innovations. He has been involved with research, experiments, operations analysis, software development, systems engineering, and training for nearly 50 years. Dr. Dam earned a BS in physics from George Mason University and a PhD in physics from the University of South Carolina. He participated in the development of C4ISR architecture framework and the DoD architecture framework, otherwise known as DODAF, and has written 2 books on DODAF. Dr. Dam currently applies systems engineering techniques to various DoD, DOE, and commercial projects. He has offered real MBSE model-based systems engineering using LML and Innoslate. He has been a developer and lead designer on several software solutions for proposal development, disaster relief, systems engineering, and more. He is the lead designer of the model-based systems engineering software Innoslate and Sabatra. Dr. Dam is also a longtime member of INCOSE and was formerly the president of the San Diego chapter before relocating to the Washington, D.C. area. He has presented numerous papers and seminars to the Washington Metropolitan Area, WMA, chapter of INCOSE, and he is past president of the WMA chapter and is past director of the Americas for INCOSE. He holds an expert systems engineering professional certification from INCOSE. So, enough said there. We'll go ahead and hand over the controls to Dr. Dam and we'll get started. Thank you.
Okay, I thought I'd go ahead and share my webcam. Show my screen. And so I think I've got a couple things here. Hopefully everybody can see me okay. And you can see I look a lot older in that picture. That picture has to be at least 20 years old. So the hair's got a little grayer. Wearing glasses more often now. So hopefully older and wiser. So Elizabeth, do you want to start with some questions? You might want to double check if the people who asked the questions are here. It'd be good to ask their questions first. For example, I see Patricia Lee is here.
Yeah, we can definitely start with Patricia's question. Hold on here. And where do you start learning Innoslate and how best to use it for automating testing of requirements within a modeled environment?
Okay, so a number of different ways to learn about the tool. Certainly one of them is I'm showing right here is the resources page. We have lots of information in terms of blog articles, webinars, videos, things like that. We do have a YouTube channel, which you can use as well. There's also some terrific books. Essential LML, we highly recommend because that gives you a very good overview of the underlying language we use. And of course, we've extended it significantly. There's my DODAF book, so if you're interested in the DODAF DoD architecture framework and how it's used, and then it looks like I'm going to have to write a new book on UAF. Since that looks like that's becoming the new thing. And then if you want to read more about how to use the tool to do systems engineering, that's the Real MBSE book. That gets us into really thinking about the aspects of what are we trying to do in systems engineering and how do we apply the tool to do those things. And so, by the way, let me also mention that book. It has a lab manual associated with it. And so if you're an academic, and you're looking at it to do academic, instruction, be it undergraduate or graduate level, we highly recommend using those texts, and they are available in a package. If you just contact sales@innoslate.com, they'll help you out. So let me make sure I got part of her question done, but let me see about the rest of it there. How best to use it in an automated testing environment. So right now we have Test Center, which is to capture results for testing. And the idea is that you have your test cases and be able to be linked directly to the requirements. And so what we're in the process of doing is more automation of that. And in fact, in our next release, version 4.7, we think we have a pretty good handle on how to integrate Selenium with Innoslate to do some of that work, so that the idea is that you execute the tests and the test results will populate directly into Test Center. And that way then you can also, we're hoping to put some checks in there to see, okay, did it meet the requirements? And so there's some work going on in that right now. But any kind of automated testing, for example, so let's say you have, let me go show you Test Center, if you're not familiar with it. So Test Center here, you have the ability, if you like, to add a file attribute. And I believe I've done that with this particular model. Yeah, so we have a file attribute we've added, and that's very easy to do, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But so if you're doing a lot of automated testing, you end up with these individual files and for each test. And so the idea is you want to archive those to document the testing, because that's the main purpose of the Test Center's documentation, is to help you develop your test cases, understand them, but really key is documentation. And so this way is a way then to capture all your results. So if you've uploaded a file, there will be a download button. And so then that way you can download the actual results that you had, the detailed results, and then summarize them in the actual results field, or just do what this says, C file for full results, for the full results, that kind of thing. So again, a lot of different ways to use it today. But again, we're looking to do further automation. We also think it's very feasible, and I know one of our colleagues actually did some work where they actually built the ability to move data back and forth between Innoslate and LabVIEW. And so they did that through the LabVIEW APIs. We were looking to see if we could generalize that work. We haven't been able to go that far with the LabVIEW yet, but we hope that's something that will work in the future as well. As I mentioned, though, traceability back to the requirements. So our traceability matrix is available. And so if I go back and find all my verification requirements, let's say I'm going to do a query here, and all my verification requirements start with a VR, and the relationship I use is verifies. This then shows me all the verification requirements here on the top. So the columns of the verification requirements, and then so the intersection is clearly when there's an X, it means that you're meeting that requirement. That's the requirement you're working against in that test. And so when you hover over a cell, you see the name, number, and description of each of the cell items. And if you're not familiar with this, this also has the ability to look for traceability assist to help you identify things that should be connected, and suspect assist to show you where it's questioning whether that should be connected. And so the really good example is this green one here. This very deep green says, I'm finding a lot of information that looks like these should be connected to each other. And sure enough, there's places where it says marked, so it's looking for markings. So again, this is NLP, so it doesn't have to be, it's not a keyword search, it's doing looking for root verbs and things like that to connect things together. Then the very red one right below it is, well, there's nothing to connect them because nothing in the name, number, description, because the description's empty, has anything that would connect the two. So in a sense, what I might do when I did an allocation like that, it is to remind me that I do want to check markings as part of that. So when I come up with the steps below, or part of that test case, that more detailed description of the test case, I want to make sure that checking markings is part of what I do in that particular step. So I think those are the kinds of things how you can use the tool today. And we have many plans for the future. And of course, we always solicit your ideas on how could we improve it and how could we do that better. I think I beat that one to death. Pat, if you think I didn't, Patricia, if you think I didn't, please continue to ask questions.
All right, our next question is, how do interface control diagrams work with system modeling event simulations?
Sure. So if people aren't familiar, the ICD diagram we have, it's actually one of my favorites now, so I should put it up at the top. So this is showing you the interface between, in this case, it's the payload bus and its decomposition, which is these data harnesses. You also see input-output elements that flow over those. And so what happens is in the simulation is it looks at the size of this data and then looks at the latency, I'm sorry, the capacity of that particular conduit. And so it then uses that information to put in delays where appropriate. In this particular case, 100 versus 10, I'm not going to have a very much any delay really at all, anything significant, certainly less than a second. But if that was 10,000, now I start getting into delays of some significant time delays, and so that would be more observable. And so so the simulator is taking that information into account when it actually executes. So you'll see that, and you'll see delay factors show up in the Gantt chart of the discrete event simulator particularly. Also note that these can be distributions in both cases. This does not have to be just a number. This can be a distribution. And so you can pick any distribution you need for that as well. So, and it will, in fact, let me just type one out here as an example. And so, because you know that everything varies and things aren't exactly 100, that's not going to be the real number that you'd put in there for anything. And you can put in estimates this way. So maybe it has a range from 75 to 125, and then 100 is my median value. So put that, and then yeah, it makes it a little harder to see, but it's there. And you can move some information around here to see it better. So make that back to 100. I think that answered the question. Was there another part of that?
I think that was the whole question. Let us know if you have any additional questions, please. Our next question is, how can I convince NSWC Dahlgren Division that Innoslate is the right enterprise level digital systems engineering tool for us?
I've been trying to do that for years. And a number of people have adopted it for that purpose, and we are using it for that purpose on a variety of contracts down at Dahlgren. In general, the main thing is that most of the other tools that you're looking at are really more software-oriented tools. They're not really looking at it from a systems or enterprise point of view. Innoslate was designed with enterprise-level activities, including mission engineering, all the way down, systems to systems, down to the systems level, and you can push it into all the way to the component level design if you want to. But at some point, the design engineering tools take over. So Innoslate's not a mechanical engineering tool. We're not a CAD tool. We don't do stress analysis. We don't do finite element analysis. There's great tools for that. I highly recommend our ANSYS partner for that. And then we show also the programmatic side, which again for enterprise level and all the way down, the programmatic side of it's very important. The risk analysis, cost analysis, timeline analysis. You know, the things that you just can't do in just about any other tool, or I mean, you'd have to, again, integrate these tools together into a set. And in fact, I don't know if really well fully integrated systems engineering and program management tool. Maybe there are ones out there, but I'm not aware of. We really are that. And so it makes us kind of unique in the field. The other thing for Dahlgren is that since it is the U.S. government and they are worried about supplier factors, we are a completely U.S. developed and owned tool, that makes us pretty unique. Because even the ones that have U.S.-based companies have most of the software developments done overseas. So that's another unique factor. So those are some of the things, I think. Some of it's just people saying, hey, we're ready for the new technology. We're on the cloud. So, you know, we're cloud native tool. So we're native on NSERC, for example, which went to Microsoft Azure. And so that makes it so much easier for us. We're on Iron Bank, containerized. And again, that's a unique feature that's just not many tools can even do that. And we're operational at all levels of classification in the Department of Defense and Department of Energy. So, and I believe it's used heavily across DHS. I know the Customs Border Protection use it, and other and Coast Guard, a couple of the DHS organizations that use it. I hope that answered the question. It's not an easy question.
Thank you. I'm gonna skip to some of our live questions here, since they're in the audience. What are some fixes you would recommend if some of our diagrams and documents are not showing in our online interface?
Oh, okay. So in fact, I think we ran into that pretty recently. That is a common problem with a browser-based tool. The browser itself caches information, so it doesn't have to recreate the web pages all the time. So if for some reason you haven't been on that particular site for a while, refreshing the browser or even clearing cache and refreshing the browser is really the simple answer to that. And so that works real well for a browser-based tool. And so some people might say, was that a limitation in a sense? But it's again, it's a collaboration factor. It's a highly collaborative tool. Again, that's another unique feature I should have mentioned earlier. And it's designed for collaboration and for large groups to collaborate together simultaneously. So that's another aspect of it. So I hope that answers your questions, Mir.
Our next question is, are there any case studies or success stories of Innoslate and a civil aviation certification program?
I'm not aware of any directly. I know that we have users in that community. I also know that I work with George Mason University. They're using it in their CATSR, and I'm trying to remember, Air Transportation Center. And so they're looking at it, and we're talking about how do we do more of that kind of work. Clearly, it would be available to do the requirements analysis and those kinds of things that you do in aviation, and tracking those requirements, and making sure then you can say, indicate that they've met those requirements or not. Also, you can, of course, build any documentation you want in the tool. That's another unique feature about the tool. And so we're looking at doing more of that kind of thing.
Follow-up question. Have you ever tried auto-generating diagrams from a textual description akin to plant UML?
So we actually do that with our new Sabatra tool. We do that with, let me go back. So actually, anytime you put information into Innoslate and put the entities and relationships and that kind of information in, it auto-generates every view you're seeing. So actually, we auto-generate everything. It's not a, there is no canned, the only thing about the tool is that the rules for the picture, the diagram, or the dashboard, or whatever you're seeing, it's a combination of that and the data. We auto generate everything. So yeah, just like Plant UML does. And then our new tool, Sabatra, goes a little step further. Is we can take a standard operating procedure in text-based, not natural English, and convert it into an action diagram or an activity diagram, if you prefer SysML approach. And so that's another thing that we're doing more and more of. But I know I bring in requirements all the time, and I can create a requirements diagram instantly from that information. I can create a hierarchy chart. I can create a traceability diagram with a spider diagram. So yeah, these are all automatic. And if you've not seen the tool, basically, once I click on one thing, I automatically get the other diagrams. Let me just bring that up, another example of that. So here I am with this is a LML action diagram. Okay, so that's our behavioral functional diagram. But this is the diagram that's physically constrained as well. So you can go down and identify actors. Looks like this got kind of small. There we go. Different actors, and so you click on the actor and you can see who they are, more information about it, and we can add pictures for things as well. There's relationships you can see decomposed, that kind of thing. But the thing that's probably most important is that when we use this diagram, we auto make the relationship between the asset and the action. So this action is performed by the payload, and so that's automatic and created for you. So a lot of these diagrams are just simply an interface for you to create entities and relationships in the database. So it's not a it just, again, that's part of that auto generation thing as well. What was I going to talk about otherwise? Oh, I know. Move back up. So if I go back up, well, actually, I should just stay where I was. Let me go back down again. Sorry. Back and forth, back and forth. Okay, so if I want to see this as a SysML activity diagram, I just go down and select SysML activity diagram. And so that, again, I'm not generating that. I don't draw that. I just generate it automatically from the data in the database. Or if I'm a classical system engineer, I get an I want an IDEF 0. Or one of my all-time favorites was the n-squared chart. So you just pick the chart that makes sense, that what you're trying to do, and that's what you work with. And you can edit it there. And if you edit it there, it edits it everywhere else. Again, that's the auto generation capability. So hope that answered that question.
We had a few follow-up questions to that. Can you demo Sabatra?
Demo Sabatra. Wow. Okay. Didn't have that up and ready, but let me just go see.
Before we got into Sabatra, I can ask you a quick question about the quality checker, actually. How can we use the quality checker to help us with creating mission and functional requirements? And then we can do Sabatra, because I don't want you to have to come in and out.
Okay. Well, I'm already there, so.
All right, your choice. Sabatra or quality checker?
Yeah. So Sabatra is going to take a longer demo. So what was the other question?
The other question was, how can we use the quality checker to help us with creating mission and functional requirements?
Okay, that's a long question too. I'm going back and forth.
Both awesome questions, though.
So what do you want to take? First one first, Aaron? First
Yeah.
come, first serve? Okay.
First come,
So this is Sabatra, and there's an import analyzer. And this is where you can import, you would select a process, or you would actually upload, start a new one. And I could have just typed a new process name in, and then I would get this menu here. And here's where you upload the SOP. It's a document. Again, it should be somewhat well structured. We actually have a guide for writing better SOPs, by the way, out of this work that we did. You can split the action diagram into parent and child diagrams as well. You can input a time distribution database, which we provide, by the way, an example R4 as a starting point for you. Input devices, output displays. Again, we have examples for all these things for the aviation area, by the way, and acronyms. These files actually were generated by our research partner, George Mason University. So, and that out of that CATS or center. And so then you would run at Sabatra, and that would then give you the diagram. So let me go back to where I was. There we go. So there we go. And then as you have this up here, it shows you what you've done. If you scroll down here, you see an actual picture of the model that was created. And so if I look at that, I will go through and then see it automatically created that hierarchy, and then now decompose it, and I can see the different aspects of it. Then you go through and apply the timing distributions, and there's some aspects to that about frequency and queue evaluation that are part of that time distribution database, and then that would tell me what I can select from it, and I can use that, and it gives me that time that's here. But if you get lazy, like I often do, I say, well, I want all these things to have that. I could just go through and then apply that across the board to everybody, that timing. And by the way, that's a new feature of Innoslate, is that little time thing to apply to across as well. I believe it's there as well. If it's not, it will be. Anyway, and so then you just, once you're happy with the diagram, you would go through and execute it. And discrete event and Monte Carlo are both available. The Monte Carlo is special, because what it does, it's all set up to give you certain metrics to determine how good your process is. So my process right now looks like I'm failing all the time. So I obviously need to do some work to make sure either adjust the process or look at the timings to see if I have the right timings. Because again, you could have different problems here with that. But so this is kind of a quick nutshell on Sabatra. I highly recommend, if you want to know more, we give you a full demo, because it does take almost a full hour to give you the full demo. So I don't want to take everybody else's time for that.
Thanks very much.
Okay, and the second question was about documents. And
how
let's see.
can we use the quality checker to help us with creating mission and functional requirements?
Sure. So one of the things about the quality checker is that it has this quality score associated with it. And what it's doing is it's reading your requirement and comparing it against some key factors. So is it clear, complete, consistent, correct? Does it contain design information? Is it feasible, traceable, and verifiable? And so the design information is also, we put it as yes. So if there is design information in it, this would automatically be set as a no, and not as a yes. So again, that's just to make it so easy for it to roll up the numbers. And then, by the way, you can add other attributes to this group as well, and you just have to make sure you add it properly for the to tie it with this quality set of information. And I can go into the quality checker, and we can get into more detail about that if you'd like, but that's another. But what it does is it then shows you problems with your requirements. So here, this one, I've got a lot of ambiguity. Appropriate markings. What's appropriate markings mean? You want to be more specific. What are the specific marking is probably a standard you need to be referencing here rather than appropriate markings. Also, the word all almost, I hate to say it, but almost all the time, all is a very bad word to use in a requirement, right? So things like that. So it'll help you start crafting and creating better requirements. And particularly it'll help you focus more on creating good functional requirements as well. So that's really a kind of a part of the goal of this, is to help you just do a better job of that. And then this is, again, part of that natural language processing algorithms that we provide as part of the tool. Another aspect of that is our intelligence view. And intelligence view includes extra criteria for different classes, and in particular requirements analysis. Here's some of the key things for it. And so things like this, using the keyword shall. Most people think that if you don't use a shall, it isn't a requirement. Other people feel differently. So we give you keywords actually when you're doing the import to automatically distinguish between a requirement and a statement. And a statement is a contextual piece of information, whereas the requirement's that legal thing that you're trying to track to. So again, these are all best practices that were developed by work at the Naval Postgraduate School. So there's 68 heuristics covered in intelligence view. And so again, these are again just aids to help you do a better job of creating requirements.
Thank you. A follow-up question on quality checkers. Where did the quality score come from?
So the quality score, let me go back. So again, it's that combination of the attributes: clear, complete, consistent, correct, design, feasible, traceable, verifiable. So those 8 attributes are what we're rolling up. The yeses to those are rolling up to give me the percentages. Now, by the way, we don't automatically do 2 of these, which is correct, which means is it legal, and feasible, is it possible? And these are things that require human judgment, we think. And I'm not sure I'd want to give you a 100% score anyway right out of the box, because you really want the analyst to look at the requirement. And so we're trying to give you an aid here, not trying to do the job for you. We don't think that's good for you, for anybody to do that. So that's one of the reasons. Even if I could come up with a good algorithm for those things, I don't think I'd put it in there. So particularly, you wouldn't want us to search all the legal books in the world for the correct one. So.
Our next question is, why do images not replace that asset on the layer diagram? Why do existing entities come up and some don't?
Yeah, so that's one of those things right now. So one of the things we try when we design a view, and the layer diagram view, by the way, was a suggestion by a user. And so let me just bring it up here so you can see what it looks like. Layer. Yeah. Let's look at that one here. So if this is the one I want. Yeah, this is what I want. So this is, if you start putting pictures with this, it's going to get really busy really fast, because I'd have to put pictures for all the ones I have pictures for. Now, if you say, oh gee, I just want to put pictures in this lower row and they're going to stay small, that may be okay. And that could be a suggestion to be made. And we're always, again, looking for suggestions for how to improve it. So if you do have some ideas there, what you'd like to see, let us know. But as you get into the so for currently right now, we only put pictures in the asset diagram. And again, not one asset diagram. As you can see, and of course you can adjust the size of these pictures by just adjusting this. And so, yeah, it could work there at a level. Again, if I had it at the higher level, I had a diagram, it would really probably look pretty bad. So I guess it's just we haven't had the request more than anything else. So it's something I think we can certainly look at if it's something you think is desirable. And again, if you have other ideas, by the way, for how you want to see diagrams or diagram types you think we're missing, please give us those ideas, because again, we are taking user input and converting it into the tool wherever we can.
Thank you. Our next question, what advice would you give to someone starting their career in systems engineering?
Oh, okay. So if you already know you want to be a systems engineer, then I highly recommend going ahead and taking undergraduate classes in a really good university like George Mason. And of course, there are many others I probably could name, but George Mason is one I'm closest to. If we're physically closest, I am an alumni, and I'm on their advisory board for their SCOR department. So needless to say, I've got a pretty tight relationship with George Mason, but they have a really excellent undergraduate program. And a lot of people say, well, it'd be better to get a degree in something else. My degree is in physics. All my degrees are in physics. And I gravitated to systems engineering through project engineering. I was a project engineer for a number of years at TRW and Rockwell. And so I just found the systems engineering more interesting and got more and more into that. So that's often how people used to do it. But through the educational process that's available today, it's a great opportunity to get that undergraduate degree in that first if you want to. The difficulty is you do have to understand the other disciplines' languages, how they talk, how they think, and be able to work with them. And that takes a lot of experience. That takes time. So be open to that, to recognize that I'm going to get if I get that degree in systems engineering, great. It's just a starting point. You can get the master's degree too. That's not bad. I always recommend do those things together even. But get out and get some experience. This is why INCOSE doesn't certify people as a certified systems engineering professional until they've had at least 5 years of real world experience outside of academia. And that sounds sometimes harsh. Geez, shouldn't somebody be a CSEP if they're a master's degree in systems engineering? The feeling was that that you're still learning at that point. You really need to have the experience to really understand it. So it really helps a lot to have that background. When I got into systems engineering, I had already had a PhD. I'd worked for probably 10 years doing other things, not just systems engineering. So yeah, so it's really, really different.
Thank you. Our next question is, what is the end goal / vision with Innoslate?
Oh, so I actually have a picture for that I use all the time. Let's see if I happen to have it here handy. I think I do actually. So I don't know, man, if many of you all of you are familiar with the Iron Man movie, but the first Iron Man movie was actually still my favorite. And that's when we got introduced to Jarvis. And Jarvis was an AI that would interact with the designer, with Tony Stark, and he would then use it to help develop and design his hardware, I keep wanting to say costume, but his armor, or suit of armor, and all the devices and things like that go into it, that whole design process. So ultimately, that's where we all would love to go. It is science fiction today by far. We're not even close to this, but it is something to look for. And that's kind of my vision, is we're trying to create a environment that you can do it top to bottom, cradle to grave, and interface it that way. That's really kind of the same vision people have of the digital thread. And we're still not there with that either. So don't think there's a panacea out there for this, because there isn't. If anybody says there is, and they've got it all nailed down wrong, there's still air gaps, and there probably should be between tools, particularly at this stage in time. Our understanding of even the basic physics is still limited in many areas. So it's hard to have a tool do everything for you. But yeah, this is where we're trying to get to, and we are exploring the holographic technology using the Microsoft HoloLens. That's actually interfaces very nicely, since we're a browser-based tool. It's designed to work through a browser interface. So it works right with the tool out of the box. And so you can start interacting that way. We're looking to see what we can do to add and use some of the features that are available within it to go that next step. And so again, that's kind of my vision for where we want to go in the future.
Our next question is, how do you convince management to switch from a document-based approach to an MBSE approach?
Yes, it's really hard, but I think what I show them is I show them documents view first and say, we don't think documents are bad, except when they're in PDF form or Microsoft Word form, because the problem is that the elements of the document aren't reusable and aren't traceable. These are. I can move this object and use it in any other document if I want to. In fact, I have one of the documents. Let me just see here if I can find that one. It's not pinned here, but requirements documents only. That's good. Come on now. I can find it quickly here. This one. Okay. So in fact, this is an example of doing that. So here I've got in this enterprise requirements document, I picked up things from the mission needs document, which is the MN. And I know that because I just used that acronym. So I'm bringing them into this document to put them into this context. And then if I have other ones, I have a mission requirements document. I pulled this one out of here, this MR. So these are coming from totally different artifacts that I have in other forms, but I'm reusing them here. And in fact, I can see that if I go open up, I clicked on it and I'm opening up the spider diagram on it. Again, here's that auto generation. So if I take that geolocation thing I have here, I can then see what it's tied to. It's tied to the FireSat mission requirements. And that is an artifact. So it's one level below that in that document. So it's in that document and it's in the ERD document now. So again, I can see it as part of the ERD log of words. So I think that shows that ability to, use it and work with it. And once they see that, then they see, well, wait a minute, this is a model, isn't it? Yes, we're actually showing the relationships and information content in a graphical form that pretty much does define the definition of a model. And of course, then you can introduce them to other diagram types and how they link together and how you interact with one another through these relationships and things. So it's a fairly easy thing to do with Innoslate because we have this documents view. And again, documents aren't bad. It's just the PDF and Word documents are bad, right? So. And oh, by the way, you do export these to finally go when I should say, even PDF and Word documents aren't bad if they're the final form of the output you're trying to create. You do want to have we call it shelfware. We want to put it on the shelf. We're not going to change it. Here, though, is my living document that I can update and change and work with and go that next level. So all we do, once we say it's time to publish it, we'll baseline it. So we'll create a baseline, and then we will report out that document output into a docx, make it look pretty for the customer, always do that, and then publish it in PDF if you want, and then shelfware. And then what I often do is upload the, let me go back to the main one here so I get to it. This again is an artifact, and if I want to have my baselines, I can either upload them here directly, so I could take that, export that document, this PDF, upload it here, and I'd make a note which version it was, that kind of thing in here in the description field. And so I can track it and trace it. If I want to make sure I know what all my versions of a document are, I can associate this document and I can decompose it by the different versions. And so again, this is another way to keep all your information together in one place. So yeah, I think that's the best way. If you really want to get people excited about this kind of tool and this kind of thing, you got to give them something familiar and something they feel comfortable with. When they see the risk matrix, things like that, they're going to go, oh, wait a minute, this is something I understand. This is something I can work with. If you give them some of these other diagram types, even this one may confuse people, although they have better chance with this because this is a loop, this is an OR. Most people have had basic logic, even people who are not engineers and scientists that have basic logic often, and so they can understand what these things are and what they kind of do. If you give them other forms, for example, like an activity diagram, you do have to explain to them what happened here. You have to explain to them what these symbols mean, and particularly that fork will throw them off a lot. Anyway, so those are things that I think we find in terms of a communications tool with people who are more document-based. They're going to be a lot more interested in using the tools that help communicate to them. And so this is we find, and again, that we feel that's our number one mission, is to be a good communicator between the stakeholders.
Thank you. Another great question. Could you explain how we can benefit from the schema editor?
Yeah. So the schema editor is kind of cool. So what it does is it lets you change things like adding labels and classes and relationships as well. It's also where we can get to workflow. So you can set up your workflow elements and how you want to do workflow. And I mentioned earlier about adding the attribute to test case. So in fact, what I did to do that was just down here, test case. And then so you can make it a link or a file. So we added a file. This is just a data type we have. So you can select which data type you want if you add a new attribute. So let me just add a new attribute and show you the different data types that are available. So everything from text, big numbers, big text, HTML, all these different things. So it's just really a file type. And then that allows us to upload that file to any entity class. Another one we have is equation, by the way. So if you do equations, we have, you can put an equation in LaTeX, then visualize the equation as a real equation. That's another kind of neat feature. So I'm not going to save this, but that's again a very quick thing about the schema editor. Any other questions?
We have another question. What is the 1 to 2 year roadmap for Innoslate?
the 1 to 2 year roadmap for Innoslate. Okay, that's an interesting one. So our current plan is we just released 4.6 back in June. We started then immediately on 4.7. 4.7 is looking at being a feature release. There are a number of features we're looking at. We're hoping to be able to bring in System L2 capabilities. I don't know if that's going to be fully well enough defined by then or not. We're doing a major update to Documents View, which also include Test Center. Believe it or not, Documents View and Test Center share a lot of the same framework. So they're very similar in a lot of ways. And a number of other things we're looking at, upgrading diagrams, and there's just a lot of little feature things we're adding in 4.7. Then in 4.8, we go back into a usability bug release update, and hopefully we'll keep that cycle short this time. The last time, 4.6 took a while because we had a number of feature releases without a bug release. And so it's always good to go through and find the problems and making sure we clean them up and get something much more stable out the door. So that's 4.8. So again, the timelines for these are roughly, we're thinking December for 4.7, and then 3 to 4 months maybe for 4.8, and then we start 4.9 development. 4.9 has not been fully defined yet, so we're looking at a variety of things for that. And so again, your inputs are very valuable in helping us decide what's in 4.9. And then probably at that point, we'll probably be getting close to looking at 5.0. So I don't know if you know about our numbering scheme. The first number is the architecture version number. So commercial best practices say we should re-architect our tools every 3 to 5 years. And we've roughly been on that cycle. So that's why version 4 is the third re-architecting of the original 1.0 tool. When you do a re-architecture, you're updating frameworks, your software frameworks, both sometimes the front end, so that's JavaScript, and back end can be Java updates, or it can be database updates, significant database updates. So those are some of the things we're looking at for 5. We're thinking about, I think 5's main theme is going to be scalability. See if we can't really help improve the scalability. We're already doing some of that with Documents View update, by the way. That's going to give us infinite scrolling on documents and things like that. There's going to be drag and drop. Some very cool stuff coming in for in 4.7 and Documents View. So that's kind of a nutshell.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Dam. We have time for one more question, and it's a fun one. What is your favorite Marvel movie?
Wow, that's hard. I would almost say I really love. It's really a toss-up between Captain America and Iron Man. The first 2 of those. I will probably go with Iron Man because I collect them. so I have almost all the issues. So anyway,
Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us for this special Ask Me Anything webinar. We hope you got a lot of value out of it. If you have more questions, we're always available. Please feel free to reach out to us. You can email our support team or our sales team, or even email Steve and Dam directly. We're here for you. So again, thank you for joining us today. And our next webinar is going to be a recorded webinar. It's going to be another special webinar. Our summer interns have done some really exciting stuff for us this summer, and they're going to be presenting that. So please register for that when you get your email, and you can join it at any time. And then we'll be back to our live webinars in September discussing SysML 2.0.
Did you have a slide on that, Elizabeth? I didn't see that. You didn't take.
I do have some slides. I just didn't want to have to. They were just.
Okay.
Don't worry about them right now. We'll send the slides afterwards, and I will also send an email out for both those webinars. So keep an eye out for that in your inbox. And again, thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.